Welcome to the Purest Movement Vitamin video series. What this aims to do is give all of you and any of your friends and family, teammates, coaches, a resource to improve how everybody moves. One of my missions when I created Purest is to advance human potential on a worldwide level. And part of that is just improving how we move on a day-to-day basis. So what these videos aim to do is simple things that you and anyone else can do anywhere, at any time, at any amount of frequency. I want these to be able to be done for, someone who's 50 or 60, 70, or 10-year-old just starting out in sports. And I'd like them to be able to be done every single day. Maybe occasionally we'll tap into things that shouldn't or couldn't be done every single day, and I'll mention that when that time comes. But I really want this to be fun. I want to improve people's movement vocabulary as well as replenish some movement deficiencies that we might have picked up along the way in life, in sport. Every now and then I might do something that's more specific for one sport than another, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. Again, I want these to be accessible to anyone at any time, at any frequency. I want them to feel good. I want them to be fun. And I want you to ask questions. Ask questions of yourself, of your friends, teammates, and to me. I really, really hope that these provide you with a resource to improve how you feel, improve how you move, improve how you play, and reduce injuries. Enjoy. One last thing. With all of these movements that you'll be getting and trying, common sense, please. If something doesn't hurt, something doesn't feel right, you're hesitant to try something, don't do it. See if somebody can help you with it. I don't want anybody to get hurt pushing through something that they then don't need to push through. I don't intend for any of these videos to be so extreme or intense that you need to fight through it or even have a chance to get hurt. They're designed to be safe for everybody. But if you don't think that you are ready to try any of these, please don't. Have somebody help you. Consult a physician, consult a physician that knows what they're talking about, hopefully, and a PT or a trainer that has a good head on their shoulders and can help you move pain-free. If you have questions, please ask me. Otherwise, proceed with caution and with the intention to have fun and move better. Welcome to video number 1 of the Purest Movement Vitamin video series. So this is something that I've grown to love over the last year or so, and it's really, really simple, and it's something that is innate for all of us, yet we don't really do much. And it's just hanging. And you can hang from anything you want. At home, I don't have a pull-up bar or rings, and I kind of just hang on the door. If you're not that tall, step on an ottoman or go on a tree branch. And so, why this is useful for you? Our shoulder structure has evolved from monkeys, who have quite different behavior than we do. And part of that is swinging from branch to branch and just hanging overhead. And that restructures and changes how our tissues and bones in the shoulder work. And it's something that we don't get enough of in our day-to-day life, and it might affect your shoulder in a negative way without it. Hence the movement dysfunction, and this being the movement vitamin, or deficiency, movement deficiency. And so, with a lot of people's shoulders, you'll see this forward lean or even forward arc. And what sometimes that is just an inefficient stimulus of overhead arm movement or hanging. And some of the structures might end up becoming more of like a cabin roof or a roof that would be in the snow, really nice and steep like this. And to reference a movie that some of you might get is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And the arm wants to stay in the garage of this roof. And when the roof is very steep like, when the arm moves up, it might hit the roof and create some impingements or some issues. Where what we want to do is reshape how the shoulder structure works by hanging in various ways so that it's not this steep roof, but more of a flat roof that we would see maybe in the desert or something. And that then gives the shoulder a lot more free range of motion when we hit a volleyball, hit a tennis serve, swimming, anything overhead. And so what I would ask is that over these next few days, months, weeks, you try to accumulate 5 minutes or 10 minutes of hanging every day. That could be 30 seconds at a time or minutes at a time, depending on how strong your grip is and how comfortable you are with this. And with that, there's kind of 3 different ways we can hang. So first would just be passively, where I'm just hanging out. I'm not trying to do anything. My feet might be on the ground, or I can take them up off the ground. Whatever you feel comfortable with. If this starts to bother your shoulder a little bit, then I would change it to more of an active shoulder hang, where instead of being passive, where our shoulders are by our ears, we're going to pull our shoulders down towards the ground or head to the ceiling and hang here for quite some time, or as long as you can. Feet on the ground here or in the air. So test it out, feel what might be best. If active and passive are quite good, maybe in a week or 2 you start doing something a little bit more dynamic. And dynamic could be swinging forward or backwards and just inserting some undulations and some variability. You can swing side to side by pulling each shoulder down, or even start hanging just one arm. And on a pull-up bar, what's really nice is you can keep your hand fixed and start spinning around in different directions. And this can be a passive or active position based on your preference, your comfort, your strength level, how much you want to challenge yourself. So again, to sum up, I would love this to be done every day and accumulate 5 to 10 minutes in a day. I try to do this maybe a minute at a time, maybe in rest interval in a workout. It's really easy to inject that in there. Before I go play volleyball or tennis or golf, I try and come here first and just get a few minutes of hanging because it really opens up my shoulders. And not only that, you know, it decompresses our whole spine. And what I think is kind of silly these days is people buy these expensive boots to put on their shoes and then they try and hang upside down so that they can decompress their spine. Or they might go on an inversion board and go upside down. But we don't need any of that equipment. We already have it. It's just your hands and a tree branch. And if you relax enough, you'll feel quite a nice decompression, elongation, maybe stretch in your back. And that's another reason why I like to do this. When I fly a lot or drive or travel, I really try and make sure I get some hanging in before and after that travel to counteract all the compression that I'll get when I'm sitting in a chair that's probably too small for someone my size. Anyways, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask questions. Share this with other people, share this with your teams, share this with your coaches. Again, my mission here is to upgrade and advance human potential, and it starts one way is movement. So please be part of this, help me out, and share this with the people you care about.
Hi, welcome back to the Apiros Movement Vitamin Series. This is video number 3. I call this No Hands Rolling. And so what this means is that, or what the video is that you're going to hug yourself here, however you want, where you can't really use your elbows, your shoulders for this movement. And what you're going to try and do is, how can you get up to this position here without using your hands, without using arms, elbows, shoulders, anything with the upper body. We want it to be strictly a torso movement and hip movement. And you'll find your hips and your legs get quite involved to make this happen. And I'm just going to roll side to side here, getting up and down, not thinking too much about it at first. And just kind of having fun with it. And then I might try to really slow things down and just see how slowly can I roll and come on up without using my upper body at all. And I don't really want to tell you the secret sauce to getting up. I want you to figure it out on your own. I love doing this maybe anywhere from like 3 sets of 10 or just for a few minutes straight. I think it's really fun when you do it in a public place because it's a little bit more unusual and might help desensitize you to what other people think. And I think that's a great thing for a lot of people in this day and age where we're very worried about that. But if not, just practice it at home on a nice, open, soft space. And that's it. Thanks so much for subscribing. And if this is forwarded to you, the only way to get these movement vitamins is by subscribing. And you can do that at www.apiros.team/subscribe. And Apiros is spelled A-P-I-R-O-S. Enjoy. Hey, welcome back to the Apiros Movement Vitamin Series. This is video number 4. I call this one Flying Squirrel Rolling. This one's really fun and a little bit more challenging than some of the other ones we've done so far. So I want you to break this up into just whatever segments are doable for you. So what it involves is you're going to try and first grab your heels here. And just doing this might be enough for a big stretch for a lot of you, whether that's limited knee flexion or knee bending or shoulder or rib cage stuff. I know some people end up being like here, if this is the only way they can grab their ankles. But ideally, first you could just sit here and relax and have your neck and back flat on the ground. So let's call that part 1. Part 2 is going to be hips towards the ceiling, and we're just going to try and get one hip outside of an elbow, going side to side, and trying to feel which side is actually easier or harder. And I know going left for me is a lot harder than going right. And so once I've got this kind of lubricated and moving, I'm going to try and go even further, where now I'm going to try and get one hip to the ground outside my arm. So this will be part 3. And again, we're going to try and go slowly, but if you fall, that's all right. And then maybe back up from there. Part 4 would be continuing on to your stomach. And again, with most of these movement vitamins, we're going to want to go slow. Going fast is all right, but trend towards going slow and using no momentum. Then we're going to want to come back. And there's a few different ways to come on back. So notice here, I can kind of just reverse what I did and pull my right knee backwards and get back into the starting position. Another way I can do it is I'm going to bring my knee towards my chest as I kind of roly-poly myself into a ball, smash my hat, and come back to this position. So, a few key points. Try and keep your heels close together and not really wide where your knees will be in towards each other. And that's it. push kind of your comfort zone a little bit within reason. Again, the rule of thumb with all of this is common sense. If your body's trying to speak to you saying, hey, we don't really like this movement too much, please don't do it. That's it. Have fun with it. Bye. Welcome back to the Apeiros Movement Vitamins. I believe this will be video number 6. Doesn't really matter either way, it's coming to you. This one's going to be all about feet. And so part of my idea with this whole thing behind movement vitamins is what are these little supplemental movements or things we can do for our body that are useful for everybody at any age, any talent level in sports, any sport, anything that's just useful for the human body in today's modern age. So, let's start outside and work in. So first for shoes, I'm a big fan of these New Balance Minimus, and why that is you can see they're roughly a 0 drop, meaning the same thickness in the heel is the same as the toes. And part of the reason why I like these shoes also is that the toe box, where the box of the shoe where your toes go in, is wide enough for my toes to really splay out. And then also they have a little bit of cushioning. I know it's really popular for everybody to go barefoot these days and get back to our roots or whatever, but realize that's also if the surface we are on is also soft enough for our foot. So I think these create a pseudo barefoot environment for my foot inside the shoe while giving me somewhat of a padding in between my body and something like this, concrete. And then secondly, the shoe doesn't really matter if the sock is so tight around your toes that your foot can't splay out and toes can't operate as they should. And so a lot of my socks are toe socks. The ones that aren't toe socks, because these can get pretty pricey, I really like a Puma high top sock, and that's just habit. I like the way they look, but mainly because the part around the toes is actually quite loose, and stretchy, almost like a dress sock. And so that's what I would encourage you to surround your foot in, is something that's loose and allows it to operate as it should. Even then, there's still some maintenance that we can do for our feet. I try to wear flip-flops a little bit more often than other shoes when I can, and barefoot when I can. But even flip-flops will create quite a big gap between the second toe and the first toe. And so that's some of the stuff that I want to discuss today, and things that you can do with your feet so that you can regain control of your feet, as well as have them function a little bit better for you. All right, so now you're going to get a little bit of a point of view, reference point of how you'll be looking at your feet. So something that I like to do at home and I walk around in despite them saying not to are these yoga toe type deals. I don't actually know exactly what they're called. In the email link that you'll get, I'll provide a link for these. I like these because of how wide they are. And so this is kind of your minimal viable product. You can kind of just hang out at home, watch Netflix, play video games, whatever, do homework or work, and have your toes spread out a little bit more. And what I find this does is it removes some of just a little bit of the obstacles that we face in regaining some of the control of our foot. However, what I prefer to do is actually use my hand. And so I will interlace my fingers in between each toe. And I've got quite thick fingers, and so this is a bit more intense than the yoga toes. And what I really want to try and avoid is not getting all the way down to the bottom of the knuckle. For our purposes, we're trying to actually splay out the bones in here. And one way we can do that is by really making sure we're at the bottom of the knuckle. And notice that your fingers will taper, that by the fingernail, it's going to be thinnest. So start maybe at the fingernail. And then once you're in there, just feel out what moves you can do, what feels good for you. You're going to have to readjust a few times. Sometimes if I don't feel like moving it around, I'll just wedge my hand in here and keep it there. I really like going up and down and lots of twisting. I might anchor the heel down with my hand. No specific way we really need to worry about that, but just try and move just the front edge of my foot. And so this will be quite intense at first, and then this should get easier and easier. And then after that, the control I want you to try and regain is going to be, I want you to be able to control almost each toe independently. I want you to be able to splay them out and have an equidistant separation between each toe. And you'll notice the difference between my left foot and my right foot. I've gotten a lot better at my left foot, or my right foot, sorry. But my left foot, I still have this huge gap here. And so I really need to work on creating that control there. And I don't really care how you do it. You can use your finger at first and just hold it, or even just create a little bit more separation here. I find just getting any sort of the experience, even assisted, is useful. And then eventually you might be able to start wiggling it. And this is just a learning experience for you. You don't have to get there at any certain time, but ideally, at some point, we just continue to improve the quality of your foot over time, so it looks something like my right foot over here. Then, or another option you may do at any order, is can you keep it wide and just pump the ankle without the toes moving? And so what we want to avoid is lifting the foot up or bending the ankle by excessively using the toes. I find this to be really, really common with a lot of athletes, especially basketball players, football players, soccer players, who spend a ton of time in small shoes with a lot of change of direction. And so we want to return some of the intrinsic control of bending the ankle without needing to utilize the toes to do so. And so this is going to require quite a bit of brain power. You might not be able to binge watch Netflix and do this at the same time, so just dedicate a little bit of practice to it, and then eventually you can divide your attentional resources and feel your foot as you watch something else. All right, so hopefully by now your foot's feeling pretty good. What I really like to do is do it all on one foot and then stand and feel the difference between my left foot and my right foot. That being said, go about this however you want. It's an exploration of feeling and awareness for you. I really think improving the way our foot can move and restoring some of its functionality will improve the way we communicate with the earth. That being cooperating with gravity, transferring our force into the earth and receiving the forces back from the earth. Remember, every action has an equal and or opposite reaction. So if the way you communicate into the earth with your foot is dissipating some energy, you may be putting a ton of force into the earth and not receiving it back. And then that being said, it's not a chicken or the egg argument here. It's not about your foot is the issue and that's what's going to clear up your hip. That's the cause, and then the hip will be the effect. It's not the chicken or the egg, it's poultry. It's a whole system. If there's something that's maybe tweaked with your foot, right foot or left foot, chances are you'll notice other tweaks that you can make in the rest of your body. So I don't think of it as that myopically, it's much a big picture system here. So that being said, explore, do what feels right for you. Use common sense with this. Listen to your body. If your body's telling you, hey, don't do this, scale it back a little bit. Maybe you just start with the toe separators. Maybe you just start with the fingertips. Maybe you just start with trying to wiggle your toes around in every direction and improve the control you have of your ankle. Either way, this is your journey, your movement vitamin. Take some ownership in it, and thanks for watching. Hey, welcome back to the Apiros Movement Vitamin series. This should be number 7, I believe. This is Aaron. Welcome, Aaron, to the team. And as you know, Tanner already from some other videos is future videos. So this one is about a position called sitting Seiza, I believe as the Japanese call it. And it's what we are all doing right now. I believe this is kind of an essential sitting or resting pattern that everyone should be able to do. I really find a ton of benefit for jumpers as it decompresses the knee. And so the first progression of this would be just being able to sit on your heels. And if you can't do that, then just work on going from up top on the way down until you find your point of comfort and come back. Remember, your body's a finely tuned piece of machinery that's designed to tell you if you should proceed or not proceed. Some people call it common sense. Some people call it feeling your body. I urge you to feel those things. And then moving forward from this is making this static posture a little bit more dynamic as we will start moving side to side here a little bit. And Aaron, I'd like you to actually talk about the benefits of this on the knees and whatever parts of the legs and the rest of the body that you see.
Yeah, so you're looking at weight bearing through the lower leg as Tanner rocks side to side. He's actually getting motion through that tibia and fibula, which are the lower leg bones, and actually moving those. And you might feel a little bit of ankle motion as well, seeing that your ankles are now in a plantar flex position. It's also really important to notice as Tanner does this motion that he keeps the belly relaxed and notices what his ribs and pelvis do with this. So you're looking to actually control the motion and go into larger and larger ranges as you can control it. So you're not looking to plop or fall. The way this is done is by articulating through the ribs and keeping the head over the pelvis or more or less vertical.
It means just the basic support, right?
Exactly.
So what I would urge you to try and for Tanner to do is how balanced can you stay on top of your center of pressure on the ground where you feel contact on the ground as you slowly go down. And if you do that well, you'll notice you'll start opening up this side of the rib cage like an accordion, and this side of the rib cage should compress. This is an essential part of what your rib cage should do. However, it's oftentimes neglected and rarely achieved in day-to-day tasks. Most exercise programs or sports never really touch on this essential movement of the rib cage. Aaron, I mean, how many articulations or movements are in the ribs?
So in general, you're looking at your spine, there's 24 vertebrae. 12 of them are in the rib cage. So you're looking at just half your spine is now in the thoracic spine or in the rib cage. 10 of them on each side articulate 3 times with that spine. And then you're talking about individual articulations. It ends up being roughly 70 to 80 joints within the rib cage itself. So you talk about a vast number of joints that we never really think about.
And so this is going to be part 1 of a 2-part series of movement vitamin around this posture and making it a little bit more dynamic. So tune in next week and be sure to share this video with others our goal here is to really upgrade the movement of as many people as possible. And by following these movement vitamins a few minutes a day and developing your own menu of movements that you really like, you can help yourself and help those around you. So please share, urge others to subscribe to the Apiros update, and that can be found at www.apiros.team/subscribe. Hey, welcome back, or welcome to the Apiros Movement Vitamin Series. This should be number 8, and this is part 2 of a 2-part series from the last one, where we're sitting Seiza, and now we are going to advance that or progress that onto another variation. I don't think that the next one's more difficult, it's just different, and that's why we wanted to separate it up into 2 positions. And so I call this half Seiza, and that right there might just be an interesting task for you to be able to bring your leg up and back without using your hands on the ground. So notice there's an opportunity to develop and improve your awareness and your movement with almost everything that you do, whether that's grabbing a fork out of the drawer or soup out of the top of the cabinet, or sweeping and mopping the ground. There's opportunities there. So once we get here, I really like this position. It's just a variation of a nice resting posture. I do a lot of computer work here and handwriting or texting, or even when I'm on Instagram or something, I try to be in a more advantageous position. But then from here, there's a ton of different variations that we can do that I will let Aaron discuss, as he is a little more articulate about these things than I am right now.
So yeah, one variation in this half Seiza position is just moving your whole trunk in a circle. You can go clockwise or counterclockwise. Actually, I encourage you to try both of these. So we're looking for a less differentiated movement through the trunk. But actually what's happening is a lot of articulation in the ankle joint and the ankle that he's sitting on. So as Tanner moves through here, you may pay attention to how your foot is making contact, where those parts of that circle may get jagged or you might staccato. You're actually looking for a smooth motion all the way through. The other thing to think about with movement is when movement's at high quality, it's always reversible. So I could go one direction, and if I told you to stop, can you turn around and reverse that direction with minimal effort? Another progression from this would actually start side sitting towards the leg that is up. So you're actually looking to drop to sit on your bottom and come into a side sitting position. And then talk about that reversibility. Can I come back up into this position? And the challenge would be, look at how I use my hands, how much I need to use my hands. Can I make these more and more relaxed Now, if you need to, you may have to push a few times, but again, controlled, and at any moment, can I stop and come back?
So I really like watching the difference between you two, and I'd love for you two to be both facing the viewers here and going side by side so they can see Tanner is a little bit more stiff as he's never done this before and still learning. Aaron's much more well versed and aware of his body, which is something, well, Tanner's very aware as well, but just watch. Stop thinking about it, just watch. So notice the difference in his rib cage here versus Tanner's, where he tries to stay, well, he just ends up staying much more rigid, where Aaron kind of melts into this and doesn't resist. And so come back up, guys. So both of you try and go really slow and pay attention to the left side of the rib cage. Notice how many wrinkles are in Aaron's shirt, where Tanner's spine is pretty much staying straight up and down, as he's not yet able to articulate into those ribs. And why don't we try the other side now? And you can see that Tanner is a lot better on this side than he is on the other side. Do you feel that? Mm-hmm. So, as you can tell, there's not really a right or wrong way to go about it. It's just your way, your path, what feels best for you. And so I encourage you to explore it, and again, use your common sense of what your body is able to do and not able to do, and just let that be your guide as you decide to take it as far as you would like to go. Thank you, and be sure to share this with your friends. They can only find these on the YouTube and Vimeo channel, but mainly through the email subscription, which is at www.apiros.team/subscribe. Thanks, and see you next week. Hey, welcome back, or welcome to the Apiros Movement Vitamin video series. This is number 9, and I call this Happy Baby Rolling. You can call it whatever you want, but Aaron here is a superior specimen at achieving this, so I'm going to talk about it a little bit as he demonstrates the maybe highest quality of it, and then I'm going to show a little bit stiffer and someone who's eager to try and get it to look like how he does. So, I'm just going to shut up and you watch him, and I'm going to watch him too. And that's how I want you to think about it first. Just use your skills of observation to see what he's doing, how much energy he's exerting, what is moving, what's not moving, the pacing, noticing his head position, where his elbows go, where his knees go in relation to his elbows, the timing of when he comes up off the ground and his shoulder starts to lift off the ground, when he starts to collapse into that side is what I also want you to notice. So why don't you talk about it now, with me doing it, about purpose, what I might feel, why this is good.
Yeah, so this movement, you can see there's a lot of flexion or a lot of rounding through the spine, a lot of folding, so it's a nice decompressive motion for the low back, a lot of differentiation through the rib cage, flexing through, in this case, his right leg, the down leg. So it's a very big global pattern, and by holding the feet, it creates a demand on the body to move through the spine. And many of us, we're sitting or we get stiffer as we age, we tend not to move as well through the spine, which translates to more force going to the knees, the shoulders, and neck. You can see where Austin could benefit in this motion is that he's actually a little bit better on this side, but as he keeps rounding to let his body use the ground as support. So you're almost thinking of melting into the ground. Again, with any good movement, it should be reversible at any direction. That's when you know mastery of it, is that you can stop at any moment, and with minimal effort, reverse that action. And this is what I love about this movement, is that this motion right here is a lot of differentiation in the ribs, back. You can see the wrinkles in his shirt there. So what I would encourage you to do when you try it, don't go all at once. Explore a little bit, maybe going down to the elbow, going to one side. Feel like how you can rock to one hip, to the other. You'll find, I can almost guarantee you're going to find a side that's a little easier, a little harder for you to shift to.
There you go. All right, have fun, enjoy that. Should feel pretty good, and see you next week.
Point for Aaron.
Okay.
1-1. Welcome back to the Appearance Movement Vitamin Series. This, I believe, is video number 10. This is a video, or a movement I like to call Bear Around the World. And this is going to be more of a total body thing. It's scalable to anybody, whether you want to make it more easy or difficult. So we're going to be in a position we like to call bear. Aaron, go ahead and go into that spot. And so this is a hands and feet weight bearing position where the butt is just slightly higher than the shoulders. First, what I want you to notice is that we can see broad shoulders here, where he's not kind of sunken down and just relaxing here, and his head would probably collapse. We want to stretch the shirt out by pushing your chest away from the ground, or imagine you had a necklace you're wearing, and you're trying to pull the necklace up away from the ground using your neck. So now, what I want you to try and do is unload one arm, maybe 1 pound at a time, until you can completely unweight it without any movement here. And so Aaron's being challenged on this side, and we see his hips shift, and that's okay. It's just he's taking that as awareness, and then he's going to try and unload his right arm next without any movement here. And go back, and then his right leg, and we'll go in a circle. And then the left. And so then he's probably taking notes of which limb was the hardest, and I'm going to guess it was his left arm, so maybe he does it a few extra times. And we can also vary where the weight is. So he's got a decent amount of weight on his arms here. We can also unload his arms a little bit to challenge his hips to stabilize a little more and make it a little easier to unweight his arm, but a lot harder to then unweight the leg. Nice job. And so then a few other small details with this is going to be the hands.
I'm surprised how hard that was for your left hand.
Yeah, well, I realized I got a lot of weight in my arm. I'm like, no. I think I don't know why that's so hard on that. But it's good. It's always good to have struggles.
Go ahead and put your hands on the ground. Let him be how everybody else is. Yeah. All right. So now To improve the quality of the hand position, I think this is a huge opportunity here. We can see on both fingers and both sets of hands that his fingers are kind of curving inwards. And that's happening because he's got a little excess weight on the outside of his palm, where we want things even through as much surface area as possible. So I'm going to say go ahead and let his knees come down so that he can be in a relaxed position to set up his hands. So I want his hands and his fingers as wide as we can, a lot of surface area, and then I'm going to ask him to weight there more on the base of his thumb and base of his index finger. But his elbow can't turn out to the side to do that. I'd still like his elbow crease to kind of point in the direction of his thumb. And I'll have that on both hands. And then once he feels like he can keep that surface area in that position, he's just going to unweight his knees. And then if we want to ask him to unweight that left hand again, can he maintain this hand position while he unweights that left hand? And here we could just alternate back and forth of the hands, resetting into that nice and wide and balanced position. Or notice what happens if he unweights one of his legs. Does his hand shift? Does he deviate out of this more centered position? Cool. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week. Alright, so one last detail. I'd like you to also progressively try and unweight an arm, almost indistinguishable. Instead of just kind of this panic lift off, I'd love for you to just slowly unweight one limb at a time. Standing at the wall like this is an option before you go down and bear, but I don't want it to be this like panic lift. It should be nice and relaxed and a gradual unweighting. I just think it's really easy to show it when I'm on the wall. Hey, welcome back to the Apuros Movement Vitamin Series. This is number 11. And this one's going to be extremely useful for people who walk with their feet turned out a lot, or maybe on the outsides of their feet, as well for anybody who's a single leg jumper, whether that's high jump, basketball, long jump, as it pertains to a lot of how the pelvis is going to rotate over the leg that's on the ground. And so you can do this anywhere. All you need is a wall and the floor.
So the setup of this is, in this case, Austin's right side, but his down leg's going to be against the wall. Austin's going to make sure that he's going to check that he's at least in line with his trunk or even slightly behind. Keeping 3 points of contact with the foot, and that would be the ball of the big toe, ball, little toe, and the center of the heel. Those are your primary spots where you want to keep contact with the wall. From that, Austin will work on rolling forward as kind of one unit. So the downside, his right side is a fixed point. He's trying to move his trunk together so that he's actually rotating his pelvis around his femur. Now he's going to go as far as he can as maintaining this neutral spine. So what
What would not neutral look like?
Yeah, so if he can go to where either his shoulder, you see a big wrinkle in the shirt, where the shoulder moves more than the hip, or sometimes you might be trying to move the hip more, and you might see a big arch in the back here. So the idea here is how easy can I roll over this right leg? If you're feeling like you're getting stuck or you're on carpet or something, you can put like a towel or something to reduce the friction, make it a little bit easier. Or you can even potentially put like a foam roller here to allow you to roll a little bit. Ideally, a smaller foam roller would be better. Again, looking to roll over the hip. He should you might feel stretch on the down hip, making sure that he maintains contact with the foot. So we don't want to see his foot come off the ground. So again, there's 3 points of contact here. What I'd like you to think about, this is actually standing on the right leg. So if Austin turned up 90 degrees, this would be like him
standing up, pushing off his right leg, either jumping or running, any of those actions. This is a way to accentuate the feel of the motion that you need in a vertical position.
Cool. Thanks.
All right, welcome back. This is Movement Vitamin Series number 12. About that. What we're gonna do is we're gonna actually have a series coming up that will build off of each other. But the first one we're gonna do is just an actual body scan. In this case, lying down. The value of this is actually being systematic on feeling certain parts of your body, and I'll talk you through that in a moment. But it also gives you a reference point. So when we go into our series, we're going to do some movements, and I'll tell you to come back to the scan so you can perceive a difference. And if you're making contact with the ground in a different way, or your breathing changes, or maybe you feel a little calmer, there's a lot of different aspects that go on with movement or being in person. The reason why we want to do this scan initially is, again, to have that reference point so that we can perceive a difference to the next reference point, to the next reference point. This is an active way to build awareness through, and you can take this from lying down to what you're doing during your day. So if I'm doing the dishes, kind of be aware of how my feet are making contact, where am I bending in my hips. Generally, this is called mindfulness. I'm just going to be a little bit more systematic about it. So what I invite you to do is lay on your back, and you're just going to take a general viewpoint of how you're making contact with the ground. Imagine if you're lying in sand, where would that imprint be in the sand? If you were able to float up, what would be your imprint in that sand? After a general view, you're going to focus on your right heel and your right foot. And how does that make contact with the ground? Is it turned towards the ceiling? Is it turned out? You're not going to try to change it. There's no right or wrong at this moment. You're just going to stamp that in time. You're going to start following that up the right lower leg to the back of the knee, the thigh, and to the hip joint. What I'd like you to kind of think of is that you're paying attention more to the bones, where your bones make contact, not so much paying attention to any of the muscles. You'll do that to the left leg, so starting at the left heel, again, getting a sense of, is it making contact more towards the inside the heel or the outside? Is that different than your right leg? Following the left lower leg, the back of the knee, the thigh, to the hip joint. And noticing if there's more space behind the right knee or the left knee. Then getting a feel for your pelvis. Is there a little more weight on the right hip or the left hip? Then in your mind's eye, you're going to locate your tailbone. You're going to follow that up to your sacrum, which is in the middle of the pelvis, in between the two cheeks. Then you're going to try to identify L5, or your last lumbar vertebrae. Going vertebrae by vertebrae, you're going to start going up your spine from one L5 that's connected to the pelvis, to L4, L3, L2. Now I'd like you to keep following that up through the rib cage or the thoracic spine and all the way up to the base of the skull. Then you would take this, then you'll scan back down, starting at the base of the skull from the first cervical down each vertebrae by vertebrae, trying to identify each one individual of each other. You may find that some vertebrae are easier to identify than others. Sometimes people have a big blank. Usually it's in that kind of mid-back area. Might feel like a chunk, or might actually kind of be very difficult for you to even picture. Over time, this will develop. What that indicates is that your body's more used to moving in certain spots. Those are the ones that are easier for you to identify. And the ones that are a little bit less clear are places where you have opportunities to move more or improve your awareness of that movement. Then you're going to check your shoulders, feeling how the right shoulder makes contact with the ground. Is it elevated off of it? Is it turned in a little bit, or is it lying flush? Find the tip of your shoulder and trace that down to your thumb. So again, idea of how the arm makes contact with the ground. And you'll repeat that on the left side. Feeling how the shoulder blade makes contact. Find the tip of the shoulder and trace it down to your thumb. And then you'll just do another general scan of how if you're laying in sand, how are you making contact with that sand? What kind of imprint would you make if you're able to come off the ground without disrupting the sand? Again, this is part one of a series. We're going to go through some movements and we'll come back to the scan and see if we get differences over time. Thank you. Okay guys, welcome back to the Movement Vitamin Series, number 13, and it's part 2 of what we're calling ungluing the shoulder blade. So watch previous week or listen to it. It's starting off with a basic scan of the body and talking through that. We're going to use that as a reference point as we continue forward. So going through, I'm going to give you time to go through or pause, go through your scan, get a sense of, again, how you're making contact with the ground. Key with this activity is it's going to help with overhead reaching. You should not feel any pain with this. You're not pushing through any, it's not a no pain, no gain. Your breath should not change. You should not be clenching your jaw. Your back and neck should not be tight. It should be actually feel quite pleasurable. You may feel some tissue stretching a little bit, but that should feel good. Everything is very low grade intensity. This is, again, not a no pain, no gain situation. Be very careful with some of the movements you're going to see because it could cause shoulder impingement if you push too hard. So what you're going to do is the first movement is you're going to bend the elbow and bring the hand so it rests next to the ear. I don't care so much as finger placement. It may be back towards your shoulder, or you can have it turned out. If this feels too uncomfortable, it feels too much, you're getting pinching in the shoulder, the top of the shoulder, put a yoga block, put some towels, build it up higher. Over time, you'll be able to progress down. I can guarantee you go higher than you think you need. You will get tons of benefit from it, and you'll be able to progress down lower sooner. If you try to think I need to get my hand on the ground because Austin has his hand on the ground, you're doing yourself a disservice. So now Austin's going to take his left hand, put on top of his elbow, and he's going to just move, with the help of his left hand, he's going to move his right elbow to the left and to the right. Just easy, light, small, very small range of motion. And looking to maintain equal contact on the bottom or the right hand. And as you do this, you're going to try to expand your awareness of not just the elbow moving, but feel what your collarbone might be doing. Feel what the shoulder blade's doing compared to the rib cage. Feel that there might be a pull on the ribs. And just see if you can reduce the force, let things move that you see fit. You might even feel some tension down the back. If this feels like too big of a pull, you can also bend the knees up. That'll take some of the stress off the low back. So go left and right with the guidance of the left hand, and then you'll go up and down relative to your body. So a little bit past the head, bring it down a little bit, Again, thinking that the shoulder blade can move. This is a great activity for if you're someone who does a lot of desk work and your day's down here all the time, to get you to be able to help you reach up. A lot of shoulder impingement problems happen because the shoulder blade doesn't move well enough.
Or any overhead athletes.
Or in any overhead athletes, is again a nice position to get your shoulder blade in a space so that your arm can be relaxed and get you more and more whip. If you're a thrower, volleyball player, any of those things this is a great activity for you. Take a break from that. Again, the rest is not because it's so physically demanding. I want you to do another scan and see how, by doing this activity that's probably novel to you, did that make a change on how you make contact with the ground?
And why is that important?
By perceiving this difference and knowing that we either, in this case, Austin's shoulder's lying a little bit flatter to the ground than his left shoulder, he's getting rid of unnecessary contractions. So a lot of times with pec minor or pec major, starts elevating the shoulder. People get really tight. Again, overhead athletes get this. Desk, people working at desks, this can be a problem. When he does this novelty, his brain goes, hey, I don't actually need to contract this muscle, and it lets it go, and now he's in a more efficient state lying down. So in turn, he's going to get better recovery. Tissue is going to be not as stressed, so when he goes hits a volleyball, he's not overly tight here and causing more damage down the road. We'll leave it at that activity just now. I would like you to do it to the other side, and then we'll build off of this following week. Thanks. All right, back to number 14, the movement vitamin series. This is part 3 of ungluing the shoulder blade. So watch the previous 2 weeks because they're going to build off of each other. Again, you're going to do your scan that we talked about a couple episodes ago. We're going to revisit some of the movements. So Austin's going to bring his right hand up by his ear. Try and keep, again, if this is too much, build up yoga block, towels, make the floor come to your wrist, not you trying to force your way down. You want to maintain equal contact throughout the hand, especially at the heel of the palm. He's going to take his left hand over, and we'll go from, he'll move the elbow left and right with the help of the left hand. And he'll also go up and down relative to the body, so down being towards the feet, up being above the head. Again, feeling what the collarbone does, thinking about the shoulder blade, helping the movement, feeling how the ribs have to articulate with this. Again, maintaining a nice clean contact, full contact with that hand. It's a great mobilizer for the wrist joint as well. So now we've done up and down, left and right. What you're going to add is you're going to connect that to make a circle. So you can start clockwise. That will be a very small circle. Try and equal that out. You might find your circle might be more of an oval. If it is, narrow it up so that you can make it a clean circle. You'll go 3 or 4 times clockwise, and then you'll reverse it to do counterclockwise. Again, this should be easy, light movement. Your breath should not change. Your jaw should not be clenched. You should experience no pain with this. And then bring the arms back down, take your time. Again, go through that scan. Notice if you feel anything different. If you're lying flatter to the ground, that means you're in a more efficient state because you're letting go of unnecessary contractions that are holding you up. This allows for better recovery. It allows for better tissue capacity. And the feeling that you might even feel more relaxed, and being more relaxed means you're in a more efficient state. So we'll keep building off of this in the next coming weeks. That's it for now. Welcome back to Heroes Movement Vitamins. It's number 15, part 3 of ungluing the shoulder blade.
Again, watch parts 1 and 2, because it's a sequence of events that should, if you did all 4 of them, they'll take about 20 minutes or so.
And don't forget about your body scan. That's number 12.
So again, you're going to get lie flat, get a sense of how you're making contact, go through your scan. You're going to bring the arm up next to the head, just like in parts 1 and 2. Again, if this feels like it's too far away, or again, pinching the shoulder, raise the surface up. So yoga block, towel, something to give you better contact. Make it easier, then work towards lower and lower positions. Austin's going to bend his right leg up. So you're bending the same side leg. And now what we're going to do here is you're going to press through the elbow into the hand, as he's also pressing the knee over the foot with the intention of rolling himself to the left. And he'll come back down. So again, these are analogous positions. So we're looking at the foot and hand both making almost of a bridge on the same side, pressing through, gently pushing the belly out, also attempting to keep the knee from rolling in. It's not a twisting motion, it's actually a arching motion. So think the knee will stay over the foot, the elbow's going to stay over the hand. So we're getting a nice arch from the foot to the hand here. An easy, gentle, light. You shouldn't be clenching your jaw, you shouldn't be holding your breath.
And do you want to mention feeling foot contact so you're not pushing through the side of your foot or side of your hand?
Yeah, again, look at, can we keep a full foot contact or clean foot contact? Same thing for the hand here. So it's a great way to learn how to stabilize over the foot, over the wrist. And again, just looking at creating a little bit of an arch and a twist to this motion. So then you'll do it maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 times, up to you. Bring everything back down. Go ahead and straighten the leg and bring the arm down. Do on one side, do your scan, notice if there's a change left and right, and then you would repeat on the other side.
And so some feedback for me, what I'm feeling now is my whole right side just feels heavier into the ground. And I now know that that just means that I kind of got rid of some unnecessary contractions. My arm's a little bit more relaxed. And then relating it back to my sport of volleyball, this rotational position here is pretty similar to how I feel when I'm hitting. And so I find a lot of use doing this before and after I start playing volleyball, and we give this other baseball players, tennis players, almost any rotational athlete.
Mm-hmm.
That's it?
Yep, that's
cool.
it.
Moving on.
Okay, back to Pyros Vitamin movement number 16. This is part 4 of what we're calling ungluing the shoulder blade. Again, watch 1 through 3 and also look at the body scan. These all add up into a sequence for you. So Austin again is going to take a chance, take this opportunity to feel how he's making contact with the ground. He's going to bring, in this case, his right arm up again next to his head, same position here. He's going to bend up both knees at this point. I'm okay with either keeping the legs long or bent. It's up to you. I rather, again, comfort trumps the position. So now he's going to take the opposite hand and put it behind his head. And with the help of the left hand in this case, he's going to gently lift the head up while maintaining contact with the right hand to the ground. Thinking about letting his sternum drop, letting the pelvis kind of roll a little bit.
Roll which way?
Towards the ground. So his back will gently his low back will gently press into the ground. He'll actually, in this position, he'll actually pull the belly in gently to help with this. Do not crank on your neck. This should be, think of your spine as one unit from your tailbone to the crown of your head. And we're looking for a segmental movement throughout that. So no part should freeze, no part should be rigid, should be easy, light. As you're lifting your head, think there might be a gentle traction, almost pulling your head, keeping our back and spine long. This is a great way to differentiate the upper cervical, lower cervical, upper thoracic. Getting those separate from your shoulder blade. So before we're moving the arm, independent of the rib cage, now we're moving the head and rib cage to a fixed arm. Now we're going to rotate the head to the left or opposite of the arm that's standing. And you're going to do the same thing. So you're going to lift the head in this sideways position so that the ear still is more going towards the center of the knees, in line with the center of the knees, or in between them. Be very careful with this. More distance does not equal better. There's a big twist going on in your spine, so be gentle to yourself. But what this does is this rotation creates a spine, differentiation of the spine, also gives the collarbones more information on how to move differently. So again, you'll repeat each movement roughly 5 times. Then Austin's going to roll his head to the right. And then again, lifting the head in this position with it facing the standing arm. Take as many breaks as you need. You don't need to do all 3 consecutively. You can do with the head in line, take a break, head rotated one direction, take a break, head rotated the other direction to finish it. Then go ahead and put everything back down. Go back to your scan. The scans are meant for a reference point. Notice what changes you start feeling. Hopefully, ideally, you start getting more contact with the ground. Maybe you notice that your breathing might change. You can bring some awareness to the ribs underneath or in your armpit. And you may feel that the ribs that sit above your shoulder blade can potentially start moving independent of that shoulder blade. And that's it for this, our series of ungluing the shoulder blade. Again, this is part 404, and you can go through all 4 sequences. Also with this scan, should take you roughly about 20 minutes or so. Thank you.
Hey, welcome back to the Apuros Movement Vitamin video series. This is video number 2. And video number 2 is all about squatting, deep squat in particular. And why I chose to follow up hanging, number 1, with deep squatting is I think this serves as probably a good foundation for everybody across the board as a movement deficiency that needs a movement vitamin to kind of supplement how 2018 treats our bodies, most people's bodies, whether you're an athlete or a manager, whatever. And why that is you can think of these 2 exercises as the motion of an accordion, and the accordion being our body, where hanging is obviously the elongation of the accordion, hanging and stretching and decompressing a ton of different tissues and joints in our body. But the accordion needs to compress as well for it to work. So this is the compression, where we get into some joint ranges and positions that we don't really see on a day-to-day basis. Going forward with this, I want you to see how long can you accumulate at a time. Notice I'm going to be pretty comfortable here because I do this pretty often, and I'll stay squatting almost through this entire video. But I want to see, can you accumulate anywhere from like 5 to even 30 minutes a day, whether that's 30 seconds at a time, 10 seconds at a time, whatever. how I like to fit this into my day is if I'm scrolling through Instagram, if I'm on my computer, if I'm reading a book, I'll be in a deep squat. Sometimes I will actually sweep up my floors like this as I remove the broom handle from the broom and just have the brush, and I walk around and squatting and sweeping up the floor like that, which gives me a highly variable squat and more of a purpose of it. I'm not just sitting down here thinking like, oh my god, my hips and my shins are burning. So now what to do with the deep squat? Not everybody, I think, is going to get here their first try, and I don't care. We're just going to trend towards this a high quality squat. At first, you just go as deep as you can go. Just move often there. And if that means you're like this, fine, I don't care. Stay here for a little while, see, can you get the hips lower? Great, fine. If maybe you look like this, your heels are up and you're here, great, don't worry about it. I would love if you could maybe be on your toes and just rock one heel down to the ground as another knee goes forward side to side. And then maybe eventually you try and squeeze both heels down to the ground and come on back. Again, we're not going to worry too much about the particulars here. That'll be for some other videos down the line where we get really specific with what we want to see in the squat. Another thing, if you're off balance, grab a lifeline, grab a friend. A lot of people use this as like, okay, I'm in my deep squat and I'm just going to hold on to this. It's my security blanket, my security box, so I don't fall back. But that kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it? I want this to be just like, okay, I need it, I don't need it, I don't need it, I need it, I need it, I need it, and you come back. And it's kind of this rocking motion until your shins and your ankles can work to keep you upright and balanced. Again, if you get uncomfortable, please go into a comfortable position, get out of the position, but still, make it a practice, make it part of the practice, make it the warm-up, make it the cool-down, make it the Instagram, the Twitter, the Facebook routine. I don't care. But I find this to be extremely vital. I know many of my athletes and friends, once they've adopted this into their practice, is just rest between sets or how they warm up. Hip pain goes away, ankle pain, back pain, neck pain, a lot of different stuff seemingly starts to disappear. And without getting into kind of cause and effects there, it's just normal movement. It's something that we're supposed to be able to do that we don't get enough of, and that's kind of the whole theory behind the movement vitamins. Lastly, thank you so much for subscribing and getting this video and hopefully adopting it into your practice or sharing it with your friends, teammates, parents, coaches, creating a little bit of a culture shift of what we think about movement. And I'll get back to my deep squat now. And so remember, the only way people can get these videos regularly is by subscribing. And so if this is forwarded to you, please subscribe to the email newsletter, and that can be found at www.apiros.team/subscribe. And Apiros is spelled A-P-I-R-O-S. Thanks so much. See you next time. Hey, welcome back to Apiros Movement Vitamins. This is going to be about the hip, and we're going to give you a nice progression, maybe not as specific as some of the last ones, especially the shoulder series. This is just to say a different flavor of ice cream, still tastes just as good. This is going to be about dissociating the hip from the leg, meaning can we create motion, dynamic motion over some dynamic stability? And we're going to start with what we call a quantitative movement spectrum, going from an external focus and external feeling to internal back out to external. And so what you're going to need is either a squat rack or, say, a door frame, and then a ball or even a pillow. And so what I want you to do here is actually use as little energy as possible to keep the ball up. I want to start increasing your efficiency and how sensitive you can feel, and notice the changes in pressure in the ball. And so then what Aaron's going to do is try and rotate his belt buckle to point towards his knee or beyond. and rotate it away. So he's just going on an axis as if he's going to point towards 3 o'clock and then say towards 9 o'clock. If you follow me here. And the ball here is giving his brain information about how stable his knee is moving. And if his knee is moving, then he's not moving in his hip, which is where we want to do. An exaggerated reason why this is good for us is if he doesn't move his hip when he cuts this way, then his knee is going to replace that. And you don't need to be a doctor of any kind to know that your knee doesn't really like this kind of movement, especially at speed. And so this is working that skill. Aaron's going to go at his own pace, feeling his way through it. He might add in some variability. I personally like to try and get my opposite shoulder, say, past the door frame, and try and complete a whole rotation of my shoulders. So my shoulders are 90 degrees to my knee, but I don't want to force anything again. The ball gives us a good idea of how stable we are and if we're accumulating inefficiencies by squeezing the ball into the door frame or a squat rack. And then how we're going to want to progress this is take the feeling that you just got from having the ball on a squat rack or door frame to teach you the movement, so then you can do it with an internal focus. We believe you should have some fluency of external focus and internal focus. That's going to be a sign of movement mastery for us. And so now Aaron's going on his own, exploring this movement for himself, seeing what's different without the knee being given feedback from the ball here. And he's going to freestyle and see what can he do. Can he go up and can he go down without that knee really moving too much? Maybe it's going to move a little forward, maybe a little bit back, but in this instance, it should just not be moving towards his midline or away from his midline. And I invite you guys to have this same exploration. I don't think movement should have this really rigid robotic style, but rather a creative exploration built on some really key concepts. And so after this, the next thing that we might want to do is, say we wanted to apply this into life or sports, and well, we can't go around saying, Aaron, don't touch me yet before I make my cut move. I need to get my knee in spot and place here. No, wait, don't. I'm not ready yet. I think that's just not how life or sports work. And so we're going to slowly integrate this into, say, an external focus or external chaotic environment, increasing progressively, where he's going to tell me, am I going too fast or too slow? And so we get this sweet spot of challenge. So the rule here is his knee can't move, his foot's got to stay stable, and then he just has to avoid me. And so I'm going to start really slow and having him try and mimic exactly the same speed and intensity of my arm. A commonality is I'm going to move this fast and they're going to overreact. And they're going to guess, and he's gone this way and he doesn't know where my hand's going. He's just fleeing from me like I'm a swarm of bees, and that's not quite appropriate. So I'm going to increase and change my speed based on what I see him able to do and maybe what he talks about, and I might use other limbs. And then his goal internally is, how much is my knee moving? What does this feel like? And he has this constant feedback loop right now because there's not really a goal in this activity. He's not trying to pass the ball or score. He's just trying to increase the quality of his movement. That being said, Tanner, you want to come into the frame now? Where's your soccer ball? So the next step would be, can you incorporate this into the respective sport, for instance? So Aaron, if you want to go over there and catch the ball out of the frame. Tanner would then use this movement skill to help him kick or pass a ball, and I'm going to let him demonstrate because he's practiced a lot more than I have, where he's just going to try and pass the ball to his target, still emphasizing these same qualities of movement. And notice that even if he goes a little faster his foot might spin out, and that's okay because that would happen in a point where his range of motion, his hip, has been eliminated, or he's got no more, and so he needs to spin his foot to preserve that quality. We see this in baseball a lot, where a batter's here, and we'll see them lose their foot stability too early, even in golf, where they haven't rotated in their hip yet, they've moved all of their ankle, and, well, again, you don't need to be an exercise scientist or an expert to know that that's not the most stable position to hit a baseball in, kick a soccer ball, hit a golf ball in. So what we would want is for us to maximize this range of motion here, and it's the hip, which is much more appropriate. And then if he wants, he can spin out in his heel or his whole foot. The lowest, the last option that we would be okay with is this ankle sprain motion, but, well, that's never gonna happen in soccer because then you're screwed for the next play. Somehow baseball still is continuing to do this even though they need to run to first base. So go ahead and show us a little bit more from different angles and just play around with this. So notice he's taking these principles of this hip dissociation, hip rotation movement, and he's running away with them. He's giving himself feedback as what does it feel like when he now has a soccer ball in play. And the next step would then be incorporating these into maybe a little bit more live or a little more chaotic environment as you progress towards more and more similarities towards the sport. That being said, if you're not a soccer player or not even an athlete, you're just, your biggest exercise is walking. Well, when you're walking in public or in the mall, you're gonna have to do this to avoid some people. So there's always opportunities to practice this. Thanks so much for watching. Feel free to share this with other people. Tell everybody about it. We want to improve the movement of the whole world because then, well, those of us who are not athletes anymore, we get to watch better sports and, and we don't have to work so hard in healing and helping people as much as we do. So thanks so much for tuning in. If this is your first time, you can go to www.apiros.team/subscribe and find out more cool information from us. Thank you. Hey, welcome back to Apiros Movement Vitamins. This should be number 17, and this is a guest movement vitamin with Jeff Moreno here, and he's from Power Lab, PWR, and I want to introduce him and his fantastic new software and invention to the world. So I'm going to help him out because, well, I really like his software. I like using it. It's amazing. I think it's going to revolutionize the world of running and eventually sports. And so he's here to talk about walking.
Yeah, and as much as I love running and running fast and running at really any pace, to be honest with you, the biggest thing that kind of maybe gets under my skin a little bit when talking with patients or individuals is just an understanding of what it takes to be able to do something like running that is at 2.5 to 3 times body weight. If you're a sprinter, 7 times muscular forces into a ground at a high rate of force, and be able to do that in a way that's just healthy. And when it really comes down to it, I'm almost probably more interested in the most fundamental thing we humans have evolved to do and have been doing since probably the age between the ages of 12 and 15 months, which is walk. It's a physical activity that's highly underappreciated and underperformed by the, individuals on a daily basis, and it's probably one of the most interesting things that I'm interested in, regardless of the level of athlete they are. And it feeds me a lot of information with regards to how their brain represents movement at the lowest level that can dictate what I see at the highest level. And so the simplicity of walking and the disuse of the most fundamental activity that we do on this planet as human beings is just profound, and it irks me every single day.
So tell me about the runner. You were just telling me about the one that wanted to run like 10 miles a week, right?
So a lot of the questions or things that I get in that come into my clinic are runners coming in with very basic training errors or injuries. And as I get down to speaking with them, they're telling me their training history and this runner is running 3 days a week, and one of the runs that they run is a long run on the weekend, like a lot of runners do, which happens to be about 10 to 12 miles. And then as I'm continually talking to the person and asking them what they do throughout the day, they go to work, they sit, they run, and that run can last between 20 minutes to 2 hours. But then I ask them, well, how much do you walk? And they're like, oh, I don't walk. So they go from basically sitting in their car to work, walking to their car, walking to the track, walking to the forest, and running. But there's nothing in between ever. And the ability to run on one leg over time and distance at a given pace, which is about 2.5 to 3 times body weight, is a lot. And none of that is initiated with the most fundamental thing that we do that helps to support what we do is when we run, which is just walking on earth in a very, very simplistic way, which happens to be about 1.2 to 1.3 times body weight.
What about the cognitive effects or benefits of walking?
Yeah, probably if someone were to ask me in my clinic, and this could be anybody, what's the number one exercise or movement that I can do that I'm going to get the most bang for my buck, and this is pretty much irrefutable among all the literature within the whole entire world. And the one thing I would say is just go for a walk. And I would say do that on a regular and consistent basis. Build yourself up to the ability to walk over a long period of time, let's say an hour and a half. And I think it's, again, a very essential and underrated activity. If you're a postpartum mom and you're returning to running, one of my requirements for you to be able to even talk to me about running, you can't talk to me about running until you can walk for an hour and a half, at least 2 to 3 times a week at one time, before you can talk to me about running.
Meaning not stopping for a coffee date or anything, just continual.
I want you to go for a hike, take your baby, give your baby to your husband, let them be responsible for that individual for an hour and a half, and because the benefits of it are so essential for your ability to then in turn hop over on one leg over a series of distance at a serious time. It's so essential.
So what are the 3 things, maybe 3 to 5 things that people can do to improve? So say they're like,
Yes.
okay, Jeff, I got my hour and a half walks in. What's the next step?
Yeah, so the next step, I think that, again, let's go back to the biggest problem and probably the easiest thing to think about that I see in the clinic. Walking speed or running speed is really just an equation, and that equation relates to speed is related to stride length times the frequency of your legs turning. And so sometimes we have a tendency for humans, based on how we live, to increase our length versus increase the turnover rate at whatever speed that we're trying to walk at.
So that means we're taking too long of steps at too slow of a pace.
Yes.
It doesn't fit. So if I'm taking that long of a step, I should be moving at a certain speed.
Yes. So what I would say is the easiest thing to do first is to just shorten your stride, which will feel probably really awkward and a little unusual.
Can I go too short?
you probably can go too short, but
It won't hurt me though if
it's
I go too short.
yeah,
It'll probably be better, wouldn't it?
it probably would be better. And especially someone like Austin who's 6'4", and I've seen Austin walk. He needs a couple of things that
I walk pretty damn good, okay?
he needs to
But
work.
what can I do better?
He needs to not lock his foot out and slap his foot on the ground.
I'm working so hard on that. It's a process.
The other thing sometimes I talk about for my walkers is, and a big thing as a result of our environment and our culture that I see is that when we walk, there's a very defined front to back of the foot. As we speed up, so here we'll land. The direction of force then changes towards our big toe. The big toe is big for a reason. In that big bones like to deal with gravity. Small bones don't like to deal with gravity. So if you're
Or any force, really.
or any force for,
That's why,
for that
like,
matter.
if I take this and start tweaking
Ouch.
this, that's gonna hurt a lot, right?
Yes. So just knowing that, it's kind of a big cue. But when we walk, we have we do hit on the outside back of our heel. That's normal. We don't necessarily load there, but we make initial contact there. Shortly after that, our whole foot gets to the ground, and then we start to move towards our big toe. And this is very specific to the locking mechanism of the foot and all that good stuff. So, in our culture, sometimes we skip that phase because we lose the ability of these front portions of our muscles of our shin that pull our foot up to help prepare our foot for ground contact and absorb shock. So instead of doing that, our foot just slaps on the ground. We skip that phase. Our knee locks out because our weight's too far back. And then we vault over, and then we sometimes overuse our lower leg muscles and our calf. So another cue that I tell them, which almost helps to act as a governor to control their stride without even having to think about their stride, is I ask people to imagine as if they were walking that they had headlights on the bottom of their feet. And that it's pitch black, and the only way they can see where they're going is to just for an instant show their headlights, which helps to facilitate this natural movement of the foot that I want to see prior to ground contact and then at loading response.
With a short stride, though, because I can see how that might make me like really want to
with a short
reach
stride.
out.
Yeah. The other thing is part of the reason why that's important is because that helps to facilitate or limit us locking our knees out. And that's a whole nother discussion on the importance of the pre-tibial muscles of the leg. But
More complex than
way more complex. But the big thing is go out and walk, man. It can be tremendously amazing for your physical health as well as your mental well-being. It's the most accessible thing we can do, and it's the most fundamental thing we do as humans, and it's why it takes it's the very thing that we take 12 months of our life to figure out how to do, so we can get up and explore the environment as a young kid, and then hopefully continue as an adult.
Thank you. Where can people find more about you?
They can find me at PowerLab, pwrlab.com, and they can find me on all the social media.
What's Instagram?
Instagram is pwr.athlete.
Twitter?
Twitter is PowerLab.
And is anyone still using Facebook anymore?
Yeah, we are on Facebook.
Okay.
But you can find us at PowerLab. I'd encourage you to explore that. It's something that I'm very passionate about, and giving people the ability to access information in a way that you can visualize your best through just health. So
he's being a little too humble here. This system is revolutionary. It's amazing. Go check it out.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Awesome, buddy. Great.